Tony Reeves found evidence of espionage inside his own company. He reported it. His boss shut him down. And Tony had to decide, trust his own judgment, or do what he'd done his entire life. Be invisible, make himself smaller. Today's story is about what it costs to finally be seen, and what it takes to stop needing permission to trust yourself. Welcome to Strong Mind Stories, where we explore real human strength, the kind that comes from overcoming mental battles, life setbacks, and the challenges that try to break us. If that speaks to you, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a story. I actually read every comment, so drop your thoughts below, and if you have a story idea or a challenge you'd love to see explored, I want to hear it. Let's get into today's story. The Invisible Man. Tony Reeves sat in his cubicle at Quantum Dynamics, staring at the screen, waiting for his boss to walk by. Acknowledge the report Tony had stayed late to finish. Say anything. Director Richard Hammond passed Tony's desk without a glance. Walked straight to Jake Martinez's cubicle. Jake, great work on the client presentation. Really impressive. Tony felt it hit like a wave. The tightness in his chest. The hollow feeling. The small voice. You're not enough. You never will be. 36 years old, and Tony was still a ghost waiting to be seen. The pattern had started in childhood. His father, physically present but emotionally absent. A man who looked through Tony instead of at him. Dad, I got an A on my science project. His father, reading the newspaper, barely a nod to him. Dad, I made the soccer team. That's good. Eyes never leaving the TV. Dad, can we throw the ball? I'm busy, Tony. Always busy. Always distant. Always looking past Tony like he wasn't quite real enough to register. Tony's mother had tried to compensate, but she'd worked 2 jobs, and when she was home, she was exhausted. So Tony learned early, your needs don't matter. Your accomplishments don't matter. You don't matter. Not enough to be seen, anyway. He'd grown up feeling like a shadow, like he had to work twice as hard, be twice as good, just to earn a fraction of the attention other people received effortlessly. And now, at 36, Tony was a senior systems engineer at Quantum Dynamics, a defense contractor specializing in aerospace technology. He was good at his job, exceptional, even, but he still felt invisible, still waited for his boss to notice, to acknowledge, to confirm that Tony's work, his effort, his existence mattered. The emotional flashbacks came without warning. Richard dismissing Tony's input in a meeting would send Tony spiraling for hours. Tony knew, intellectually, that this was trauma, complex PTSD from emotional neglect. He'd read about it, recognized the symptoms. But knowing didn't stop the flashbacks, didn't stop the desperate need for validation. That Friday afternoon, Tony was reviewing system logs, routine security maintenance, when he noticed something strange. File access patterns that didn't match normal usage. Someone had accessed classified aerospace designs at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. Then again at 3 a.m. the following Tuesday. Access coming from inside the network. He pulled up more logs. The pattern repeated. Odd hours. Files outside normal project scope. Large data downloads. The access credentials belonged to Dr. Lisa Harrison, senior aerospace engineer. 20 years with the company. Fully trusted. Tony's stomach dropped. He spent the weekend verifying, cross-referencing logs, documenting timestamps, building an airtight case before saying a word to anyone. By Monday morning, he was certain. Lisa Harrison was accessing classified files she had no business touching, downloading gigabytes of data in the dead of night. He scheduled a meeting with Richard Hammond. He sat in Richard's office, hands sweating, heart pounding. What can I do for you, Tony? Richard asked, not looking up from his screen. I found a security issue. Someone's been accessing classified files outside their project scope, downloading large amounts of data during off hours. That got Richard's eyes up. What kind of files? Aerospace designs. Propulsion systems. The access pattern isn't accidental browsing. This looks deliberate. Who? Tony steadied himself. Once he said it, there was no taking it back. Dr. Lisa Harrison. Richard's expression shifted. Not alarm. Something closer to irritation. Tony, that's a serious accusation. I know. I have the logs. The access patterns. The timestamps. She's pulling files at 2 and 3 a.m. Files completely outside her assigned projects. Richard leaned back slowly, the way men do when they've already decided what they think. Lisa Harrison has been with this company for 20 years. She's one of our most respected engineers. I've known her longer than you've worked here. He paused. Are you absolutely certain you're not misreading routine work? She's dedicated. She puts in long hours. At 3 a.m., downloading propulsion designs for projects she has no assignment on. Tony. Richard's voice took on the particular flatness of a man ending a conversation. I need you to be very careful here. Accusations like this, against someone of Lisa's standing, could damage your credibility, damage the team, damage relationships that took years to build. Send me what you have. I'll look at it. Tony left the office feeling hollowed out. He sent the evidence that afternoon. Waited. Days passed. Nothing. He followed up. Did you get a chance to review the logs I sent? Richard's reply was 4 lines. Looked at them. Not convinced there's an issue. Lisa's a senior engineer with broad access. Let's not create problems where there aren't any. 2 weeks later, Tony was having lunch with Maya Smith in the building's small courtyard. One of those gray November days where the cold hadn't fully arrived, but the warmth was gone. Maya was a project coordinator, 2 years at Quantum, and one of the few people who consistently treated Tony like he occupied actual space in a room. You've got that look again, she said, unwrapping her sandwich. What look? Like you're somewhere else. Solving a problem nobody else knows about. She tilted her head. What is it? Tony had been turning it over for days. The risk of telling her. The risk of not. He looked at her, the directness in her face, the way she waited without pushing, and decided. Can I trust you with something serious? You know you can. He told her everything. The logs. The access pattern. The files. Richard's dismissal. Maya set her sandwich down. She didn't speak for a moment, which Tony had learned meant she was actually thinking rather than just preparing a response. Tony, what you're describing is textbook data exfiltration. This isn't a gray area. I know. So why are you still sitting on it? Because Richard already dismissed it. If I go over his head and I'm wrong, are you wrong? No. The logs are clear. Then you're not sitting on it because you might be wrong. You're sitting on it because you're afraid of what happens if you're right and nobody listens. She looked at him steadily. That's a different problem. Tony was quiet. I know you've mentioned your dad before, Maya said carefully. The way he never really acknowledged you. And I know Richard does this thing where he looks straight through you in meetings. I've noticed it. It's not subtle. She paused. Is that part of what's making this harder? Tony felt something defensive rise up, then recede. Yeah, it is. Being dismissed by my boss hits something old. Makes me want to back down, make myself small, not cause trouble. He looked at his coffee cup. But the data is real. The logs exist. Whatever I'm feeling, the evidence doesn't change. Right? Maya leaned forward. So the question isn't whether you're right. The question is whether you're willing to do something about it, even if Richard stays angry. Even if it creates friction. She held his gaze. Tony, if Lisa Harrison is passing defense designs to a foreign entity, this isn't a workplace dispute. People could actually get hurt. He knew she was right. Had known it for days. Saying it out loud just made it impossible to argue with. If I go to corporate security directly, I'm done with Richard. Probably. Maya didn't soften it. But you're already done with Richard if you stay quiet and something happens. At least this way you'll have done the right thing. Tony drove home that night with Maya's words sitting in the passenger seat next to him. Are you wrong? No, he wasn't wrong. The question was whether he was willing to trust that, even when the person who was supposed to validate it refused to. The next morning, Tony contacted Quantum's corporate security division directly. Within hours, he was sitting in a conference room with the head of security, Donald Pierce, a compact, deliberate man who listened the way investigators do, without expression. Tony laid out everything. The logs, the access patterns, the timestamps, the file types. Pierce and his team reviewed it carefully, cross-referencing with their own systems. When Pierce finally looked up, his face had changed. This is concerning. The pattern is consistent with deliberate exfiltration. He set down the report. You said you brought this to your director 2 weeks ago. Yes. He reviewed it and said he wasn't convinced. Pierce's eyes didn't move. Something passing behind Pierce's eyes that Tony couldn't fully read. We'll take it from here. This is now an active investigation. I need you to say nothing. Not to your director. Not to coworkers. Not anyone. Understood? Yes. Good. Pierce stood and extended his hand. You did the right thing bringing this forward. Tony shook it and walked out into the hallway and stood there for a moment, feeling the particular mix of relief and terror that comes from a decision that can't be undone. Richard called him in the next morning. "I hear you went to corporate security." His voice was even, controlled, more dangerous than anger. "Behind my back. I reported a security concern through the appropriate channel when my direct report didn't act on it. You undermined my judgment. In front of Donald Pierce. I followed the security protocol for potential data breaches. That protocol exists specifically for situations where chain of command may be compromised." Richard's face reddened. "You want to be very careful with that implication, Tony. I'm not implying anything. I'm telling you what the protocol says. You've damaged your relationship with me." Richard stood up, which Tony understood was meant to end the conversation. "I can't have someone on my team who goes around me the moment they disagree with a call. If this investigation turns up nothing, and I believe it will, there will be consequences. Hey, if this story is speaking to you, hit that share button right now. Help me get this to someone who needs it today. It only takes a second, and it might mean a lot to the right person." "Okay, let's keep going." Tony left the office shaking. Not from fear exactly, from the effort of holding his ground while every nerve in his body told him to apologize, backpedal, make it right. He sat in his car at lunch and called Dr. Sarah Kim. "I need to come in," he said. "Today, if possible." Dr. Kim had a small office in a building near Quantum, warm lighting, a plant on the windowsill that always looked slightly too healthy, as if she watered it to prove something. Tony had been seeing her for 6 months, working through what she'd named early on as complex PTSD from chronic emotional neglect. He told her everything in about 10 minutes. She let him finish before she said anything. "Where are you right now, physically? What does your body feel like?" Tony thought about it. "Chest is tight. Hands are still a little shaky. Feel like I did something wrong." "Did you do something wrong?" "No." "What did you do?" "Found evidence of espionage. Reported it when my supervisor didn't act." "So why does it feel like you did something wrong?" Tony looked at the plant. "Because Richard's angry with me. And when authority figures are angry with me, my nervous system reads it as, I've done something wrong. I'm in trouble. I'm going to be rejected." He paused. "It's the same feeling I had as a kid when my dad would go silent. Like I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking." "That's exactly what's happening," Dr. Kim said. "Your nervous system learned that pattern young. Disapproval means danger. Anger means you're bad. Silence means rejection. It doesn't distinguish between your father and your boss. It just responds to the shape of the situation." She leaned forward slightly. "But here's what I want you to notice. You recognized it. You named it. And you still held your ground in that office. It felt terrible. Of course it did. You went against 30 years of conditioning that says, shrink, apologize, make the other person comfortable so they won't leave." She sat back. "That's not a small thing, Tony. Most people never get there. What if the investigation finds nothing? Then you'll deal with that. But right now you're borrowing trouble." She looked at him directly. "You trust the data. You said so. So trust yourself." The investigation moved fast. Within a week, corporate security confirmed what Tony had found. Lisa Harrison had been exfiltrating classified aerospace designs for 18 months, propulsion systems, guidance technology, passing them to a Chinese intelligence contact through an encrypted channel, receiving substantial payment for each transfer. FBI agents arrested her at her home on a Thursday morning. Quantum held an emergency all-hands that afternoon. The CEO, Margaret Hartley, was a tall woman who chose her words the way lawyers do, carefully and without waste. She stood at the front of the room and addressed 300 people. "Thanks to the diligence of one of our systems engineers, we identified and stopped a major security breach before significant damage could occur. Dr. Lisa Harrison has been arrested on federal espionage charges. I want to personally thank Tony Reeves, whose persistence in the face of initial skepticism made this possible." 300 faces turned toward the back of the room, where Tony was sitting. He felt it. The attention, the acknowledgement, the being seen. Felt it fully. And then felt, underneath it, something unexpected, that it wasn't enough. That this wasn't what he'd actually needed. That the hole his father had left was still there, and 300 people looking at him hadn't filled it. After the meeting, Margaret Hartley found him in the hallway. "Walk with me a minute," she said. They walked toward the windows at the end of the corridor. Outside, the parking lot, the gray sky, the ordinary world continuing as if nothing had happened. "Pierce told me Richard dismissed your report," she said. Yes. Did he give you a reason? He said Lisa had been here 20 years, and I was probably misreading routine work. Margaret was quiet for a moment. We're investigating Richard's conduct separately. I can't share details, but I want you to know, what you experienced wasn't normal skepticism. He should have acted on what you brought him. She stopped walking and turned to face him. You went around him anyway. That took something. It was the right call. It was. But knowing something is right and doing it anyway, those aren't always the same thing. She looked at him with the particular attention of someone who has managed people for a long time. What made you do it? After he dismissed you, Tony thought about Maya in the courtyard. Are you wrong? Someone helped me separate what I was feeling from what the evidence actually said. Margaret nodded slowly. Hold on to that person. Richard was placed on administrative leave that week. The investigation revealed he'd been in a relationship with Lisa Harrison for over a year, had known about, or at minimum willfully ignored, what she was doing. He was terminated. The FBI was notified. The board appointed Tony as interim director while they conducted a search. Tony called Dr. Kim the evening after the announcement. How are you feeling? She asked. Honestly, strange. I thought this would feel like winning, like finally being seen, like all those years of being overlooked were somehow balanced out. He paused. It doesn't feel like that. What does it feel like? Like the promotion is real and the recognition is real, but the thing I actually wanted, I don't know, my dad to finally look at me. That's not on the table. It was never on the table. He was quiet for a moment. I think I've been trying to get from bosses and colleagues what I never got from him. And it doesn't work. The container is the wrong shape. Dr. Kim was quiet in the way she was when she was letting something land. That's one of the most important things you've said in 6 months, she said finally. Tony started as director the following month and almost immediately ran into Jake Martinez. Jake had been at Quantum longer than Tony, had interviewed for the director role twice, and made no effort to conceal his feelings about the outcome. In Tony's first team meeting, Jake questioned every new security protocol Tony proposed, not with counterarguments, but with the particular tone of a man who wanted to be seen dissenting. After the third meeting, Tony asked Jake to stay. Jake leaned back in his chair with his arms folded, waiting. I want to have a straight conversation, Tony said. You've been here longer than me. You know this team better than I do. That's genuinely useful, and I'd like to use it. He paused. But the way you've been engaging in these meetings isn't useful. It's not about the protocols. Jake's jaw tightened. You want me to just fall in line? No. I want you to push back when you think I'm wrong. I can handle that. What I can't use is someone who's decided in advance that everything I do is wrong. Tony held his gaze. So I'm asking you directly. Do you want to be part of building something here or not? Because if you do, I have room for that. If you don't, we should figure that out now rather than 6 months from now. Jake stared at him. A long silence. You really found all that just from log patterns? The shift in subject caught Tony off guard. Yeah, I've been looking at those same systems for 4 years. Jake uncrossed his arms slowly. Didn't see it. You weren't looking for it. Another silence. Something working through Jake's expression that Tony couldn't fully read. The new access protocols, Jake said finally. The authentication intervals are too short for the field teams. They're going to start sharing credentials just to avoid the friction, which defeats the whole point. Tony looked at him. What would you recommend? Tiered intervals based on clearance level. Less friction for lower risk access. Tighter controls at the top. He said it flatly, like it might still be rejected. That's a good call, Tony said. Write it up. I'll incorporate it. Jake nodded once. Got up. Paused at the door. For what it's worth, I don't think you got lucky finding that pattern. He left without waiting for a response. Tony sat alone in the conference room for a moment. It wasn't an apology, wasn't friendship, but it was something real. Two people deciding to do actual work together instead of fighting over the shape of the room. He found he could live with that. 6 months in, Tony got an email from Margaret Hartley. Tony, I want to personally thank you again for what you did. Your diligence and courage saved this company. You're exactly the kind of leader we need here. He read it, felt a moment of warmth, genuine, uncomplicated, then set his phone down and went back to what he was working on. He mentioned it to Dr. Kim that evening. How did it land? She asked. Good, but different than I thought it would. A year ago, an email like that would have been everything, would have felt like proof that I existed. He thought about it. Now it just felt like a nice thing someone said. What changed? I stopped needing her to tell me I did good work. I already knew. He looked at the window. That sounds simple. I don't think it was simple to get there. No, Dr. Kim said. It wasn't. 1 year after the arrest, Tony received a call from FBI Special Agent Sarah Torres. Mr. Reeves, wanted to let you know, Lisa Harrison pled guilty to all charges. 18 counts. She's facing 20 years. Thank you for letting me know. A pause. I also wanted to say, what you did, reporting this when your supervisor dismissed you. Most people don't do that. Most people find a reason to let it go. You didn't. Her voice was straightforward, not performative. You may have prevented real harm. I had good data, Tony said, and someone who helped me trust it. He thought about Maya in that gray courtyard. Are you wrong? 2 words that had cut through everything. After the call, he texted her. Harrison pled guilty. 20 years. Thought you should know. You were part of that. Her reply came back in under a minute. No, you were part of that. I just asked a question. It was the right question. You would have gotten there anyway. Tony looked at the message for a moment. Maybe she was right. Maybe he would have. But he was glad he hadn't had to find out alone. That night, he wrote in his journal, a practice Dr. Kim had suggested early on that he'd resisted and then quietly adopted. 1 year ago, I almost didn't value my own insights enough to go over my boss's head. Not because the evidence was weak, because I was afraid of being dismissed, afraid that the people's reaction would confirm what I'd believed since I was 8 years old, that my judgment didn't matter, that I wasn't worth listening to. I spent my childhood invisible, learned to make myself small so the absence of acknowledgement would hurt less. Carried that into every job, every relationship, every room I walked into. What I understand now is that no amount of external recognition was ever going to fix that. Not the promotion, not the CEO's email, not an FBI agent telling me I did something rare. I kept waiting for someone to finally see me the way my father never did. But that's not how it works. That wound doesn't close from the outside. It closes slowly, imperfectly, when you start seeing yourself, trusting your own read on things, acting on what you know even when someone in authority tells you you're wrong. I still have the flashbacks. Still feel that old tightness when someone dismisses me or pushes back. Probably always will. But I know what it is now. I can name it, step back from it, ask, is this the past or is this the present? Most of the time, it's the past. The goal was never to stop needing acknowledgement. That's human. That's just wanting to matter to other people. The goal was to stop needing it so badly that I couldn't function without it. To stop organizing my whole life around avoiding rejection from people who were never going to give me what I actually needed anyway. I think I'm getting there. Tony closed the journal. His apartment was different than it had been a year ago. Photos on the walls, a few plants on the windowsill, small evidence of a person who had decided his own space was worth taking care of. His phone buzzed. Maya, drinks tomorrow. Team wants to celebrate your 1 year. Don't say no. He smiled and typed back. I'll be there. Because he was learning. Slowly, imperfectly, but learning that he didn't have to earn the right to take up space. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.